What's up YouTube, it's No Tango Angles. Thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and drop a like, comment, subscribe, all that. If not, thank you for coming back. So today I'm going to do something a little different, I'm doing a review on the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I know it came out 3 months ago, but you know what? It takes me a long time to beat my game, so leave me alone. But the way this format's going to work, I'm going to do my positives, then negatives, and then at the end, I'll do a little quick recap for y'all so you can look at the main points. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start this review off by saying that I have a lot more positives than negatives. This game to me was pretty great. There are very few things, if any, I found wrong with this game. So the first positive I had was the combat for sure. In a lot of ways, the combat reminded me of the Dragon Age series and kind of the Mass Effect series in a way, in that it seems kind of simple at first, but it's very complex. That's because there's different skills and abilities you can chain together. There's different ways to stagger enemies to deal more damage, and this game involves a little bit of teamwork because you have to switch between different characters depending on what the situation entails. So in that regard, this game really has a complex combat system. And Square Enix, they really hit the head on the nail with this one. I feel like this is a great formula, and they should definitely continue with this formula going forward. Let's see. The next positive I would say is the graphics. If you watch my first video I uploaded about the remake, you can see within the first 30 seconds that the graphics are beautiful. The world of Midgard, it's stunning to say the least. It's colorful, full of people, and it feels alive. And that's one thing I really appreciate. You can tell that they took their time doing this and that they had a certain level of pride going into it. And it's a great world. I was finding myself looking around, wanting to explore more. So kudos to them on that. And the next one is the characters, kind of a positive and a negative. To me, there were a few characters that really had great development and that really changed throughout the game. To me, that's extreme positive. The two that I found that changed the most, in my opinion, were Cloud and Barret. As the game progresses, the player learns more about the two and they become more endearing, whereas during the beginning, they're kind of boring and like, eh. On the other hand, the supporting cast of characters are kind of sucky. They really don't do much except be there, really. They kind of drive the plot forward, but at the same time, they're just there. So that's kind of a positive and a negative for me. The next positive would have to be the story and the plot. To me, the story was great. It drove the game forward. I was able to understand what was happening. I was going from point A to point B. There were things that were curveballs, but overall the story, it kept my attention, kept me pressing forward. And I'd also like to say that the ending, of course, it ends on a cliffhanger because there are going to be more parts of the game. But the ending was great for what it was. It showed you that there was more to come, but it also wrapped up the first portion of the game. So I really appreciated how they constructed the first part of the story. It's also worth noting that this game is around 40 hours, and it only entails about the first 6 of the original game. So that's something to keep in mind. The next positive on my list are the satisfying boss fights. In a lot of games, the boss fights are lackluster. An example that comes on the top of my head is The Witcher 3. I played that game for maybe 80 to 100 hours, and throughout that whole game, the boss fights were so easy, man. I maybe died once, and it was minimal effort. In this game, the boss fights really keep you on your toes. You have to mix up the different skills, abilities, and sometimes you have to think of what status or what element will damage the boss and stagger them so that you can do the most damage and have a chance of winning. The final bosses were also really great. You could tell they were final bosses. They got really tough, and you could tell that these were the bosses that you were playing the game and training to get through. Also like about the boss fights is that they are epic. All the bosses are big. They have crazy attack patterns. The attack patterns are never the same as other bosses or other enemies that you may face. And so this really gives you an added sense of challenge. It gives you an added accomplishment after you have beaten and slain the bosses. So I think Square, they really did a great job on these bosses. I'd give them an A+. just because they really took their time and made sure players felt like these were big boss fights. The next and my last positive is the world building. Midgard is a great world. It's full of colors. It's vibrant, as I said before. It's definitely a world I would like to explore more and see more of. So that's why I would have to say it's a great world building. They managed to connect all the areas, and they also did a lot with limited space, in the sense that while this game isn't open world, it's more kind of linear. The dungeons and areas you are allowed to explore, they seem very big. There's different areas to explore, different challenges, different chests to find. So in that sense, the world building was A1. Excited to see what they do next with the world. So let's move on to the negatives. So the first negative, this is kind of me nitpicking a little bit, if you will, is the enemy variety. The reason I have this bone to pick with the game is because the world of Midgard seems very large, very full of danger, and yet it seems like you're still fighting the same type of enemies, which makes sense considering the story, but at the same time, I feel like they could have done more with different type of monsters just to spice it up a little bit. Of course, like I said earlier, this is me kind of being very nitpicky, kind of like a teacher grading the paper, but you know what I'm saying? The variety really didn't bother me. I think, going forward, it's just something they should add more monsters. The next negative I had was the voice acting. Where to start with this? The voice acting was terrible in my opinion, especially Barrett's. Barrett is very loud, obnoxious, very stereotypical, if you will. They try to make him a stereotypical black guy. He's very aggressive. I don't like that. To me, I was like, I could do without that. In addition, the voice acting in some parts of the game is kind of awkward, especially with scenes of Cloud and I think it was with Aerith or whatever. But yeah, scenes with Cloud, expect some type of awkward voice acting. It's just something they should improve upon going into future games. But of course, it wasn't something that made the game unplayable, of course. It's just something a little minor. The next negative I have on my list are the annoying side quests. Side quests are very forced. Imagine Mitchell Trubisky throwing into triple coverage. They're that forced if you're into football. And what I mean by that is you can tell that the developers just threw the side quests in there to be fillers. All the side quests are like fetch quests, go get this, go round up these kittens, things of that nature. Things that don't necessarily need to be in the game. In my opinion, if you're going to put side quests in the game, they should be exciting and they should feel not like side quests. For example, this are the side quests in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. My friend Anthony, shout out to Anthony, I remember when he was playing Odyssey, he was telling me he spent a majority of his time playing the side quests. He didn't know they were side quests. He felt they were main missions, and that's because the Assassin's Creed Odyssey, they make their side quests enjoyable. It's funny, the characters you interact with are cool, and I feel like Final Fantasy VII on this remake, they just had side quests that were there to fill time and add padding to the game. So yeah, I definitely could have did without the go fetch quests, things of that nature. But overall, the story was solid, great gameplay, the characters were great to a certain degree. There were a few negatives, like I said earlier, but I would definitely recommend that people go get this at the full price of $60. I think that any role-playing game fan would enjoy this game. I also think even if you don't like role-playing games, I think you might enjoy this game because to me, it plays more like an action and sort of not hack and slash, but a hybrid between an RPG and hack and slash game. So I think gamers of any type of variety will like this game, and so because of that, I would recommend people buy this at full price. That's all I have on this game in my review. Thank you guys for checking out the video. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, all that. See you guys next video.